Well, the KwaZulu-Natal High Court will hand down its ruling today in the application by former President Jacob Zuma and French arms company Thales. The two applied for a permanent stay of prosecution in their corruption case. Now, SABC reporter Ayanda Mhlongo joins us now live from outside the High Court in Pietermaritzburg. Ayanda, very good morning to you. It's a big day for Mr. Jacob Zuma. What can we expect today?
A very good morning to you, Blaine, and good morning to our viewers. Certainly a very, very big day, as you said, important day for the former president today, Blaine, together with his co-accused, of course, French arms company Thales, as today the High Court will be handing down its judgment in his permanent stay of prosecution application. Remember, Blaine, that of course that was heard during 4 days in May, and it's been 5 months now that the judges have been working on that judgment, and so today is the D-Day. But of course, Blaine, while a lot of the focus is going to be outside the court, we know that there's always hive of activity here outside the Pietermaritzburg High Court. Of course, this time around we have been told that due to the time and that the court only announcing on Wednesday that it was going to be ready for Friday, that there was not enough time for his supporters to be able to mobilize. As we know that in previous appearances, there was always a crowd of people gathered in support of the former president. So today, there's not going to be large crowds outside the court. However, there are ANC leaders here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. We've also seen the likes of BLF leader Ayanda Mhlongo and some of the former ministers arriving here at the court to show their support for the former president. And we can again confirm that indeed former President Jacob Zuma will be inside court. Of course, Blaine, this is a matter that has taken now over 15 years. And as you said, a very, very important day. But just to take a look back at where the case started and go back to May, let's take a listen to this insert.
Mina ilongishilo nje anginalo angaze ngone nangelilodwa ilanga ngisho kwi-commission bayangifuna abangitholi ngoba ngaze ngone lutho.
It's been over 15 years since the former president was first charged with fraud and corruption. Zuma has consistently maintained his innocence, saying the case was nothing but a campaign to prevent him from ascending to the presidency. Charges against Zuma were dropped in 2009, but were reinstated against him and Thales in April last year. From the onset, the state said it was ready for trial. But unhappy with the lengthy delay, Zuma and his co-accused applied for a permanent stay of prosecution. Zuma's defense cited unfair delays, pre-trial irregularities and political interference. Thales in its submissions stated that the 14-year delay in the case had impacted on its right to a fair trial. The French arms company also wanted the decision to prosecute it declared unlawful and the court to review it or set it aside. Defense counsel advocate Anton Katz maintained that the prosecution of Thales had been illegal. Katz argued that the 2018 decision to recharge Thales had been unlawful and that the then NPA head Sean Abrahams should have considered a new decision on Thales and not just charged it as an add-on to Zuma's prosecution. The state accused Zuma of a Stalingrad defense, using every legal option open to him to avoid criminal charges. It further submitted that Zuma's case was not based on fact, but rather full of emotive and insulting accusations of conspiracy theories. The court will also have to deal with new evidence submitted by Zuma's legal counsel at the last minute, this being a letter it obtained allegedly withheld by the NPA but supporting the political interference argument. The ruling will determine whether Zuma will finally get his day in court. The date for the corruption trial is set for next Tuesday in the Pietermaritzburg High Court.
All right, there an insert looking at the case that was, well, the matter that was heard in May earlier this year. And just to come back to a closer today, as in around 30 minutes time from now, we are expecting the former president to make his way here to court and for the court then to begin. Let me bring in now our legal expert, Advocate Brian Jackson. Advocate, thank you again for joining us. Let's just quickly go back and Advocate, this permanent stay of a prosecution application, of course, there are certain aspects that the applicant in this matter needs to put forth to the courts. Take us through. Take us through that. We do know that the former President Jacob Zuma's defense team had cited unfair delays, pretrial irregularities, as well as political interference in its submissions.
That is correct, Ayanda. The applicant or the accused's main case is premised upon the fact that the undue delay, it being 15 years, will severely prejudice the accused in its seeking to meet the case that the state has put against it. Against them. We'll remember that both Thales and the former president rely on the same defense for the purposes of the application that was heard in May, and that a decision will be handed down today on. The defense is premised on the fact that the delay has, as it stands, already infringed upon their constitutional rights to a speedy trial, and in addition, that if they were to stand trial, it would amount to an unfair trial. What the court will be looking at in relation to make an adjudication is the fact that the delay, as alleged, and the resultant prejudice as alleged, is it a perceived prejudice or is it an actual prejudice? Conversely, the state, of course, we know, has said that the former president has himself a hand in the delays. In terms of the adjournments he's sought along the way, when he changed legal representation, etc., etc. So, in making a determination, the court will be looking holistically at the underlying test of the accused's constitutional rights against the interests of justice. Yes.
Just another point that obviously is former President Jacob Zuma alongside his co-accused French arms company Thales. Now, one of the points that they raised in their argument was the actual fact that they were then also charged alongside the former president, and they felt, and in fact, Advocate Anton Katz, representing Thales, had said that they were more of an add-on, and that when the state, or when the NPA, the then NPA head, Mr. Sean Abrahams, gave the Zuma defense opportunity to make representations, that opportunity was not then given to Thales, and they were saying that based on that, charges against them from the onset should not have been reinstated.
In fact, what Katz SC put on record on the last occasion, that to his knowledge and as at that date, his client was actually never informed of any investigations in relation to the charges that have been mounted against the two accused. And in that regard, that is the basis of their defense, quite rightly so, as you've alluded to. Yes.
Coming back to now, Advocate, today, as we said, I mean, everybody's saying all eyes is going to be on this judgment. Just take us through now in terms of the court. We did not get clarity on whether or not we're going to go to the motion court, where a single judge was then going to come out and just read the order, or whether or not the three judges who heard the matter were then going to deliver a summary. What can we expect?
If anything we've heard this morning is anything to go by, it would seem as though the likelihood is that it's either the judge presiding over the motion court who will hand down judgment. If that is the case, he will simply read out the order, as his focal point is the hearing of the opposed matters for the unopposed matters for the day. What we've also heard is that it might be the Honourable Justice Mnguni J who will actually come on behalf of the three judges, and if that does happen, he might at least, at a very least, as a summary, give the reasons that the court has relied upon for its ultimate finding in this matter.
And obviously today, you were saying earlier on that the latter would be better for everybody who's been following the case, so that at least they know how the judges arrived at their decision. That is
quite correct. If the judgment is handed down in the motion court, there will be absolutely no further reasons that will be given, save for the handing down of the order, which is definitely why I would think that the Republic would prefer that the latter actually occur, and that we at very least hear a summary of the reasons as to how the court came to its final decision.
And then, Advocate, the decision comes out either or not it's in favor of the former president or not. What's the next step then? Do you foresee any appeals by either of the two sides?
As I alluded to earlier on, Ayanda, I'm of the view that regardless of what the outcome of today is, this matter will definitely end up in the SCA on appeal. In terms of the Superior Courts Act, a court hearing a matter of first instance as a full court, which in this case we had a full court. If the aggrieved party wishes to appeal, it must appeal to the SCA. We'll be mindful of the fact that former President Jacob Zuma is ultimately fighting for his freedom, and conversely for the state, this is a matter of public interest. So there's every interest in that this matter must go to its finality. And as long as a forum of appeal exists, I think it will be duly executed upon.
There was that holding date, Advocate, the last time we were in court of the 15th, that was the holding date for the trial. Now, depending on the outcome, does that date still stand, or should the former president now be granted this permanent stay of prosecution? Would that date then fall away?
Should the president be successful in his application, the president as well as Thales be successful in their application, the matter will come before the trial court on Tuesday, but it will be a mere formality in relation to the judge of the trial court essentially upholding what's if it is successful, upholding the verdict, and accordingly essentially acquitting the former president as well as Thales. Yeah.
Advocate, thank you so much for your time once again. I know you will be with us throughout the day. They are legal expert, Advocate Brian Jackson, of course, just taking us through what we can expect inside the court. As we said, around 9:30, the court is supposed to start. The former president, we understand, will shortly be arriving here outside here at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. Of course, while we were saying, Blaine, that we're looking at what was happening inside, outside there is now a strong police presence, but as we said that there is not going to be a lot of people that are expected. His organizers, or those who are responsible for organizing support for the former president, saying that they did not have enough time to prepare, instead that they are preparing for next week's 15th, which is on Tuesday, and that was the holding date for the trial. But of course, Blaine, we are here and we'll continuously be giving our viewers updates on what will be happening here at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. For now, Blaine, it's back to you.
Just very quickly, Ayanda, from your vantage point, so no road closures at this stage in terms of the vicinity around the court?
From where I can see, the traffic is flowing outside the court. There is, as I said, police. There is quite a high presence of SAPS members, also the local traffic officials. Of course, if the crowds do, there is a possibility, Blaine, that people closest to the area around here in Pietermaritzburg, if they can make their way here to the court, that is a possibility that some people might come through. But in terms of, as you know, in the previous appearances, there were buses that were arranged for his supporters coming from across the province of KwaZulu-Natal. His supporters saying that has not been arranged, but there will be, of course, this case, Blaine, a lot of people are interested in, and often or not, even people who are passing by will stop to try and get and understand what is happening inside. So there might be a few people, but nothing formally has been organized.
No doubt. It's a big story, and keep it locked on to SABC News. We'll bring that judgment to you live here on SABC News Channel 404.